Okay, so I saw this clip from the Gospels series from Jordan Peterson. It's called The Devil's Offer. They're talking about the temptation of Christ in the desert, and I just wanted to review it, react to it, and participate in it. I'm going to insert myself into participation at the end, give my own answer. So let's look at how he answers this along with his round table.
The devil took Jesus up on a very high mountain. It's even higher than the temple, you might say, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a single glance and the splendor of them. And he said to him, "To you I will give all the power and glory of these kingdoms, for it has been delivered to me, and I can give it to whom I will. Therefore, if you will fall down and worship me, all this shall be yours." Well, the question there, the first question that comes up is just who is this devil, right? And in this case, if Jesus has the power that's attributed to him in the story, then he could take whatever he wanted all the time with no objection, and that would be that. But he'd have to turn to the worship of arbitrary authority, arbitrary power to do that. And that's certainly, I would say, the temptation, the prime temptation of the most competent people. That's why it happens to Moses, is that once you have positioned yourself in a position of authority, especially at a pinnacle, the temptation that's going to emerge immediately is, well, why not use power to get things done faster, even to get them done now, get them done for the best possible reasons, but with force and with power. And Jesus says, "Get thee behind me, Satan," which is also extremely interesting phrasing, because I don't know what you think about this, but I think that's another indication of everything being put in its proper place. Like, if Satan is Lucifer and also the demand for power, if the Luciferian intellect and the demand for power, you don't want to dispense with the intellect, and you don't even want to dispense with ambition. What you want to do is have it behind you.
Become my follower.
So right off the bat, I mean, Jordan Peterson has, of course, being the psychologist he is, he kind of always approaches these events in the Bible from a very psychoanalytical point of view, which is fine, which is, interesting in itself. But in terms of studying the Bible, understanding, what's going on in the Bible, in the context of the Bible, it might be a little bit confusing. The fact that he's asking the question, who is this Satan? Is it Lucifer or somebody else? I think it's just kind of going into that realm of archetypes and characters that he so often references in his own psychological analysis of things. So again, you gotta, understand a bit about Peterson, his way of thinking, his background, to understand how he is interpreting these things.
Is Satan telling the truth, that he has all that dominion? Is he lying?
That's a good question, yeah.
Or is he lying to himself?
He's Lucifer in this situation, because the kingdom he's offering is the sovereignty over hell. Because if you take the pathway of power, the kingdom you end up ruling over is indistinguishable from hell. So
I have no idea what that answer meant. He said offering dominion over hell. I guess you would have to see the, entire series to understand, what definitions Peterson is giving to Lucifer, Satan, hell.
My concern is that would turn this almost into a Gnostic verse in which...
So this gentleman over here seems to be having that same issue that I'm having, that Peterson is just giving all these psychoanalytical definitions that, that he comes from to these very ancient texts. So he's kind of a little bit confused in terms of, how they're answering this.
Satan is the demiurge of this world, and God is somehow removed and above. And I don't think that's...
No, but it is... It's presented that way in the New Testament, where in some ways the prince of the air, right? The idea that he is the prince of this world. But in some way, it is a lie. It's an illusion. And what Christ is showing us is that the true unity of things is a different path. Right?
Again, the answers just seem so abstract. I don't know. This is Jonathan Perdue. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now. But he's saying that this is sort of a lie, but the Bible itself says that Satan is the prince of this world, the prince of the air, and it's not saying it in the context that that's a lie. It's actually presenting us this information. So why is he saying that it's a lie in a sense?
right? That it is through this...
The true sovereignty.
Right, the true sovereignty is through giving, through emptying. It's not through grasping and holding. But the problem is that our world is full, right? It's full of that.
I also think there's another answer to the initial question that you posed, which was, if Jesus were to cede to the temptation, then it would make the temptation what's on offer real, because he would have succeeded in having the Son of God and God himself participate in it. Right? I mean, so that's the sort of knot at the middle of it. When you're saying, is he lying? It's like, in success, like, what do we think the capabilities would be of Jesus to take control if he in fact were turned to evil?
Like Gandalf taking the One Ring kind of thing.
All right, so this gentleman is trying to kind of bring the perspective more into the biblical sense again, but it just turns abstract again with the whole Lord of the Rings analogy.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good example.
That's the scariest part of that whole movie, I think, is that moment when Gandalf himself is tempted by the ring. Mm-hmm. And here's a supremely good, character, but you see in his eyes, as Ian McKellen plays him, he's tempted by that ring, and that's more dangerous than the orcs and all those things. Yeah. It's when Gandalf might have gone
Well, maybe
bad.
it's part.
So here's why I really can't kind of put these two things together, Lord of the Rings with the ring being the temptation with the temptation of Christ in the desert. Because I want you to think about, for example, one of the offerings of the devil, which was to eat bread. Think about how that is a temptation. What's so tempting about eating bread as in terms of turning your back on God or, following the devil? Eating bread. We eat bread every day in terms of we eat food. We need food. How's food a temptation in that sense that you will follow the devil if you eat bread? And to compare that with the ring of the Lord of the Rings and the ultimate power that it offers, it just doesn't really make sense. Eating bread just kind of keeps you alive, right? It deals with hunger. It's just a basic human necessity.
Possible that these temptations mount in significance as they're put forward, with the power being the most significant temptation.
I think it is.
Could easily be.
Maybe, that's a fair perspective, but I'm going to offer my own explanation at the end of this, so stay tuned.
I just ask, there's a sense in which you can only be tempted by good things, right? And here, these are all good things. Tempted by bread to feed his hunger, tempted by the prospect of his being revealed as the Son of God, and tempted by the prospect that all things be revealed as being under and subordinate to him.
That makes more sense to me, because those temptations in and of themselves are not necessarily satanic in their essence.
It seems to me that his replies in every case, you might say, enact the posture that affirms the deeper good that he would be denying by giving in to the temptation. But he literally says, man does not live not by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded of the mouth of God. By saying that, he's actually, you might say, living on the spiritual sustenance of that higher relationship.
So he offers a good explanation that the answers of Jesus to the three temptations, there's a deeper good, there's a higher spirituality in those answers, and thus the teachings or the lessons we can get from them. That's a valid point. But again, there might be a problem with that, because spiritual food, the Word of God, versus physical food, the bread, is that necessarily, better? Does that diminish physical food? Does physical food have less importance than spiritual food? Or are they actually equally necessary in their own respective domains? For example, if your children, if they're hungry, if you don't have food in the house and they're hungry and they're saying, Daddy or Mommy, I'm hungry, I want some food, and you bring the Bible and say, okay, well, we don't have food in the house to eat, but we have the spiritual food of God and we're going to read the Bible and that'll be better. No, that's not going to do anything in terms of their physical hunger. Is this about the spiritual being more important than the physical? Or is it basically about keeping things in their own domain and operating adequately in those two domains, the spiritual and the physical? So again, it's all interesting. These are intellectuals, people very knowledgeable in their own fields, and they're exploring these topics, and they make a lot of good points. However, in terms of understanding the Bible or as a Bible study, again, this kind of just seems abstract and overly complicated in many aspects. So if I were to be participating in that table, I would be a lot more focused on the biblical teaching, the biblical aspect of all these things in their proper biblical context. And I would invite to do the following. So a good place to start is searching for patterns. There are many patterns in the Bible. And what patterns do is that they show order, and order shows design, shows intent, etc. And this provides information. So let's start with the fact that there are 3 temptations. There's turning stones into bread and eating it. There's jumping from the temple and the angels will catch you if you're the Son of God. There's bow to me and I will give you dominion over the kingdoms. So right off the bat, we have 3 temptations. And what is the setting? We have Satan talking with a perfect being. And there are 3 temptations in this interaction. So is there a pattern here? Have we seen this before? I say yes, we have. When was the last time Satan was talking with perfect beings? In Genesis 3. Adam and Eve before the fall were perfect, and there he is, Satan having a conversation with Eve. Are there 3 temptations in this conversation? Not exactly. It seems more like 1 temptation to eat from the tree, but perhaps there is a correlation resulting from this initial offer of eating from the tree. So let's go back to the Gospels and look for a pattern in the 3 temptations. Number 1, there is an invitation to eat from something that is not supposed to be eatable, rocks. Number 2, there's an invitation to exalt oneself. Jump from the temple. You are the Son of God. Angels will serve you, will catch you. Nothing will harm you. It's an invitation to make a very pompous proclamation. And number 3, Satan shows Jesus a grand offering. On the horizon, he shows him all these magnificent kingdoms and saying, these can all be yours. So, can we find this pattern of 3 in the Genesis temptation? We certainly can. Number 1, there's an invitation to eat something that is originally non-eatable. Number 2, there's an invitation to exalt oneself. Eve very much liked the idea of becoming like God. Number 3, there's a showing of a grand offer. After her conversation with the devil, Eve now saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye. Satan was employing the same tactic he used in the Garden of Eden that caused the fall of humanity. But here, Jesus triumphs where Adam and Eve failed. Jesus is undoing the mess of the first man and is now continuing on the path of perfection for humanity that was always God's intent. And with this, he opens the way. He is the pioneer in that journey to return to God. And he opened the way for us to now walk in that way, that straight and narrow path. He did it so that now we can do it too. Which brings us to 1 John 2:16 and the activation that we now have, thanks to Jesus, to conquer the world, to conquer sin, to conquer the devil, because Jesus has put it all underneath our feet. Now it is a matter of us walking over it on that straight and narrow path. Here again is the pattern of 3. This time it is revealed to us what it is. 1 John 2:16, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. In the New Testament, this pattern of 3 is now revealed to us to be the 3 main channels of how a person gets involved with the corruption of this world. Adam and Eve failed in lust of the flesh. They ate from the forbidden fruit. They fed that to their flesh. Jesus conquered. He did not satisfy the flesh. He was 40 days in fasting, very hungry, but he did not yield to the flesh. Number 2, lust of the eyes. Eve saw that the forbidden tree was good to eat, pleasing to the eye, and she gave in to the lust of her eyes. Jesus was shown all these magnificent kingdoms. Satan said he could have them all their power, all their glory, if he only served Satan. But Jesus, even seeing all that magnificent glory and power, said, no, I serve the Father and the Father only. Number 3, the pride of life. Adam and Eve, thinking they would be gods, became proud, became arrogant. That led them to defying God, defying his word. Satan tried it with Jesus, saying, you are the Son of God. God. Angels serve you. Throw yourself from this temple. They will catch you. You are the one and only Son of God. But Jesus said, I am meek. I am humble. I do not tempt my Father. I am not here to boast about being the Son of God. I am here to serve man and love him. And just as Jesus resisted all this, resisted the temptations, resisted the devil, he now shows us we can do the same. And that's why we have so many verses in the Bible telling us not to get entangled with this world. Verse after verse warns us of not contaminating ourselves with this world and its ways. And how do we do that? We follow the model that Jesus set for us, and we conquer and we overcome just like he did. So that's how I would answer it. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was interesting. And let me know what you guys think. All right. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.